everyone, it's time to read another chapter from our book Toys, and this chapter is Remote Controlled Cars, and our word of this chapter is remote, which means distant or far away. Remote controlled toys. Believe it or not, remote controlled toys had their beginning as weapons of war. In 1866, Englishman Robert Whitehead was given the job of development of a means whereby Her Majesty can blow up a ship from a godly distance from the ship. After several months of work, Whitehead came up with a primitive torpedo, a small boat stuffed with explosives and steered by wires attached to the motor. To test this new device, a rusty old ship was towed into range, in this case a couple miles away. All was ready for the big test. Atlas, the first torpedo bombed. The torpedo blew up before reaching its target. All was not lost. In fact, something good came out of this flop. British toy makers, hearing of Whitehead's torpedo boat, made use of the idea. Soon English children could be seen playing with miniature battery-powered boats steered by wires connected to a simple control system. During World War I, Germans more or less reinvented Whitehead's weapon. Motorboats packed with explosives were developed by the German Navy to ram enemy ships. Since radio waves rather than wires were used, the boats were the first true remote-controlled devices in history. Like Whitehead's invention, the German weapons was converted into a toy. In the 1920s, a few radio-controlled toy boats and cars appeared on the market. By the 1950s, there were thousands. Throughout World War II, the Germans invented all sorts of bizarre weapons. There was a flying tank, and the idea that never got off the ground, and the wind cannon, which was supposed to knock down enemy planes with big blasts of air. Another unworkable idea. Strangest of all maybe have gotten the Goliath. The Goliath was a little tank, one so small not even a single person could fit inside. Instead of soldiers, the Goliath carried explosives. The idea was to send the radio-controlled miniature tank in the direction of the enemy. Once it had reached its target, it was detonated by a soldier operating the controls. Though hundreds of Goliaths were made during the war, not one is reported to have caused much damage. Rarely did these mini tanks even come close to reaching their targets. Most got stuck in the mud or crashed into an obstacle and flopped over. The rest, as they slowly rumbled along, were shot to pieces and stopped in their tracks. Remote-controlled miniature airplanes were used by the armies of many countries during the World War II. As with torpedo boats, the mini tanks, the small planes, were sometimes filled with explosives and guided by a controller toward the enemy. Other remote-controlled planes had cameras mounted on their bellies. As they were flown over hostile territory, the camera snapped photos to spy on the enemy. Ultimately, remote-controlled miniature planes were not very successful in achieving either of their wartime goals. But after the war, in the 1950s, miniature planes were reconceived as remote-controlled toys. During the 1960s and in the following decades, a wide variety of new remote-controlled toys came into the scene. Robots were the newest addition, with Mr. Atom leading the way. Toy rockets, spaceships, and lunar vehicles soon followed. How do remote-controlled toys work? Take a look at the remote-controlled toy car, for example. Inside the car is a battery that provides power for what is called a drive motor. There is a steering motor, a steering control arms, and a radio receiver attached to the antenna. This antenna picks up radio signals from an antenna on the control panel and in the user's hands. Here's a picture of it. The control panel is a radio transmitter. Signals from it go to the receiver in the car, telling it to speed up or slow down, go backward or forward, left or right. In many respects, remote-controlled toys are miniaturized versions of cars, planes, and boats. There is one important difference, however. Though remote-controlled toys are based on weapons technology, they are used for fun, not war. Here's a couple cool facts about the remote-controlled toys. Remote-controlled devices that are familiar in many households include a garage door opener, televisions, and DVD players. One of the most interesting uses of a remote-controlled car is found in coal mining, called the ROLF, Remotely Operated Longwall Face. This device directs the operation of a huge machine that cuts coal from the mine and loads it into the conveyor belt. And police and military use remote-controlled robotic devices in extremely dangerous situations. These robots can be controlled to disarm or even detonate bombs. Well, I hope you liked our toy story this week, and our next week's story is Raggedy Ann. See you all again. Bye-bye.